Each council has a set of users. They have super users who approve the other users, and then the super users are approved by the DLG, which is the governing body across all the different councils. And there's pool details. You can do view whole history auditing of all the changes to the pool records and so on. This is kind of cool. This is using Go Mockingbird behind that. This is a Google chart, but you click through to each of those. We mocked up the UI for each of the different forms and got them signed off that way. So it's used by 150 councils in New South Wales. Now Plomino, well, this is the nice thing I really like about Plomino. That's how you create a form. You use these buttons here. You can create a new field. Creates the field for you. You say it's like a numeric field. You can put in some code and so on. Gives complete control over the layout of the field form, which is very different than Plone Form Gen, where it's just in a linear list. There's the theme is there, and what's really interesting is that all the certificates, we generate PDF certificates for pool owners and stuff. That's all using Diazo. So that's again, we can hand that over to the council, to the government, and say, go modify your own templates. You want to add a few extra words in there, they can add it straight into the template here. So it's combining a Plomino form with a template and then doing PDF generation. And the code's all there as well. So if we really need to make a small change to the code, mostly what we're doing is we're developing it all locally. We're doing full acceptance tests using Robot Framework locally. And then we take that zip file and we deploy the whole lot. So we deploy the application like you would a theme. So we did deploy some code, but as I said, we try to make it generic. So with the PDF generation, unfortunately, the way sub requests work, etc., we had to modify it a little bit so that it included Diazo. That wasn't in. We couldn't get Diazo working with the PDF generation without doing that bit. That one's kind of misnamed. We'll probably release that because it's pretty Plone. It's not specific to Plomino. This collective pfg.signup is kind of cool. It's a module for PFG. It's a save adapter that creates users and allows you a workflow to say this group of users is allowed to approve these other group of users. So all the users get created and then they jump into the Plomino application. Again, so that's an idea of something that's very generic, a little bit of configuration. And yeah, there was some extra stuff we had to get imported because of issues with restricted Python. We just stuck that all into Plomino lib. Victorian SES, it's another example. It's mainly a content side, but it includes an application for caravan planning, emergency. Same sort of thing. A PDF gets generated as part of it. But yeah, we use listing views in there as well. And so yep, that was what I talked about before. That's the configuration of listing views. You've got the item fields. These are things taken from the current context of the item. And then if that context happens to be a folder or that context happens to be a collection, then it will also list all of these. And then you've got this editor where you can edit these custom fields and they can be tel expressions. So we've done complex sites and we've done them completely without deploying any customer-specific eggs. So in conclusion, why this is good for government? All our clients are pretty much government, so I'm going to talk about it from that perspective. So they love the cloud. Governments love the cloud. They love handing responsibility to someone else and having a contract and saying, you guys host it, and we just pay you X amount, and we'll choke your throat if it all goes wrong. So they love SLAs and stuff like that. They can also, cloud services allow governments to try without consultation. They can go in there and they can try it out. Problem is if they get in consultants, if they want to talk to you and you suddenly become, then there's an accusation that maybe you're sort of influencing their decision before they're properly evaluated. They like to evaluate things in their own time, in their own way. And cloud stuff allows them to do that to some extent. They love fixed price contracts, but there's a big problem with fixed price contracts is that if they want code changes, if something like that, then suddenly, if that wasn't anticipated before, then they've got to go and ask for more money. And the one thing that public servants don't like is asking anyone for new money. They normally have a budget. They don't always think about possible changes later on, and if the budget goes, then you're screwed. So one solution that we use quite a bit with our customers is we train them on how to use Diazo. We hand over the HTML and CSS to them and say, make those code changes. And that's been quite successful. We've had, people who know HTML, CSS. We've given them the ability to make small changes. They don't have to come back to us. We provide a support contract that allows them to ask questions. And same thing with the Plone forms. They can sort of change those words around the forms and things like that. And we just say, don't touch the code. So, but if they know Python, a little more training, if they're at that level, then we can say, touch the code. Go change the business logic. The other thing about going eggless, I think, is innovation. So if you give people, there's that old expression, if you give a man a fish, then he'll eat for a day, right? But if you teach a man a cloud-based application builder, they could probably use their local knowledge in order to build an entire online business, right? It allows them to express themselves, and they know their domain. The people building the sites, they know their domain well. And we've seen this over and over, that we couldn't understand how the Victorian SES works as well as they could. So they built that entire website themselves using Diazo, and they made it exactly how they wanted it, without these long kind of processes of going backwards and forwards with change requests. So why eggless is great for Plone? So the complexity of Plone, the complexity of deploying and managing and trying to understand all the possible ways of customizing Plone is killing us. And I think even more importantly, the hosting is killing us. It's not easy to obtain to get a Plone site. To what Paul talked about, we've got too many plugins. If you use Diazo, if you use these kind of techniques where what you're doing is you're having very generic building blocks that you then customize, we actually have less plugins. The number of plugins we now deploy to do a site is far, far less. For an example, I was asked we needed a sign-up form for doing a calendar thing, but the requirements were such that they wanted approval from their manager. The manager had to be worked out from LDAP, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going there and I'm going like this. There's 5 different sign-up forms, plugins in Plone, and none of them do that. So I can go and hack the crap out of those things and override them and stuff like that. Or I could just build it in Plomino. So most importantly, I think that what we can do is we can grow Plone by making it fun again. We can make it accessible to more people. We can make sites quick to create. One of the most soul-destroying things is seeing how many people put blogs on WordPress when they're Plone people. That shouldn't be the case. We should have something that you can say to your grandmother, if you want a blog, go to plow.com and create it. And you click 2 buttons and then you're there. So we keep kind of going back to this thing, right? It's a great community, it's a great community, it's a great community. It is a great community, it is an awesome community, but we should also have, this great piece of software that you can recommend to a taxi driver. That's where I think we should be. So let's get eggless. That's it. Questions? We say that, so for instance, depending on the customer, like we either give them the level of training they need, or we say, if you touch the code, it breaks your support contract. So, yeah. I think Plomino, one of the things we'd like to implement in Plomino is dual sets of permissions. So you've got the forms versus the code so that you can lock certain parts out.
Yeah, but even with CSS, if you make a syntax,
sure.
CSS, you can break the site.
Yeah.
Do you have any bad experience with
Yeah, we've had a few. It's all about. I mean, the training is incredibly important to, and also to read the person to find out exactly which level they're at if they are able to do that. But generally, yeah. I mean, one thing that we can do, for instance, is we will give them a support contract, which means you can ask any questions and stuff like that. But we'll also say, okay, you know, if you need us to do emergency coding stuff, which is not included in our support contracts, you buy a block of time, and then they have that up their sleeve. If they really screw it up, then we can go in there and code the crap out of it and fix it. So, but you know, we've had one of our big sites. We developed the entire front page for them and developed the whole theme and everything like that. A year later, we gave them the Diazo training. She completely changed the front page. We didn't think they could do it. They did it. It works great. So, yep.
What about upgrading that kind of customization? I mean, you don't have any clue about the thing that they are going to develop. So what about when Plone 5 will come out and you have to...
Pretty much anywhere you go, you've got problems upgrading. I think you have less problems if you've got less plugins, and if things like Diazo, the kind of dependencies there, you're depending on the structure of the HTML, so as long as the structure of the HTML doesn't change. In theory, I think that upgrading should be simpler with this kind of system. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest problems I find is that when I used to do things with overrides of... So overrides, for instance, if you do a template override of a plugin, you go, I want to change the sort of business logic there, so I do an override of a view. Often what you end up doing is taking a large chunk of code or a large chunk of a template, and you're saying, and all you're really doing is changing one word in there or something like that, right? And so what happens is that the plugin gets upgraded, and then all that business logic gets changed underneath, and you have to do this diff, and you have to say, well, what was I intending to customize? Well, I was just intending to customize one word. I was finding I was commenting every time I was doing, some kind of customization. So the only reason for overriding this particular template was to change this, etc., etc. So then I would have to reverse engineer how to do it with the next version, and it made upgrades a real pain. Yep.
So for those of us not ready to go eggless, are the listing views, can you export them?
Can you export them? They're in the registry, so you can export them using generic setup in the registry. Nate?
Back to upgrades, but like, are your first eggless customers still on their initial Plone version, or did you upgrade them to latest versions?
They're all still on their initial Plone version, yep.
Which is?
4.1. We're still on 4.1 for most of our customers, yep.
Okay.
Because, I mean, this is the thing. We've got one big shared platform, so all the New South Wales people, they're all on the one system. Mm-hmm. So upgrading the whole lot at one go is potentially difficult. So, yeah. Rock?
Hi. About the Git push thing, have you thought about using Git implementation in JavaScript? So not relying on the server side, which means basically you could have it anywhere and at any time. So it's not only then Plone specific.
So where are you going to store the data?
No. You talk directly, so you get a file, edit it, commit it, and you can push it.
Yeah, I think, you just blew my mind there. If that works, then yeah. I mean, my idea is that, the Plone becomes one place you push to, so it's got all the versions there. So when it's not just pushing in there, but if you go to the theme editor, for instance, and go make changes, it's going to create a commit straight away, and that commits back in, and then you can download and you can see the whole history of all the different. I mean, one of the things we miss at the moment in Plone.app.theming is there's no history, there's no undo. You make a change there, and if you haven't copied it, you can't really go backwards that easily. So Git would help solve that problem as well. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. Thank you.